Hi everyone, Karis here, and this video is to introduce my little darling familiar, Lilithia. And she came into my world in a very interesting way, and I want to tell you about that. I also would like to tell you about a manifestation trick that just came to me yesterday, and I want to talk a little bit about the difference between pets and familiars. So, the difference between pets and familiars is that, well, it's like any relationship. It's like friendship, or it's especially like falling in love. So you can fall in love with lots of people over the course of your life. I'm sure that many of you have, and some of those loves have been fleeting, and some of them have lasted for a long time, either in the physical world or in your heart. And some of them were more, I don't want to say superficial as in shallow, but superficial as in didn't pull the deepest parts of yourself into the emotion. And some of it was really deep soulmate love. And when I say soulmate, I don't mean one person who's the only one that fits in like a perfect puzzle piece with your soul and the entire planet. What I mean is someone who you resonate with and who activates you in a very unique, specific way that you know from the very first moment that you met them. And for those of you guys who have pets who are familiars, you'll know what I'm talking about, because this happens with an animal. Just as other people on the planet can reflect our divine nature in ways that are super obvious, everyone does to some degree. But sometimes it's super obvious and apparent, and you can just feel it from the very beginning. Just like other humans can, other non-human beings can as well. And so that's what makes a familiar. I have other pets, and I don't feel that soul connection, although I love them very much and I care for them and I do the best that I can to be a beneficial influence in their life, and I recognize them as a piece of my family. It's not exactly like this, which I feel like she is a anthropomorphication of an internal piece of my genetic divine code of beingness and of wild power and of unapologetic instinct and fearlessness. And so this is how I found her. Okay, so in January or so, I got the idea that perhaps I should get a cat, and I knew, this kind of just popped into my head, I knew that it would be a black cat, which there's a lot of symbolism and mythology there, and also I knew that her name would have something to do with Lilith. Lilith is the goddess, or the archetypal female energy that's very enmeshed in some of the Judeo-Christian creation myths. In legend, she was Adam's first wife. Many of the really old creation myths say that just as Eve was taken from the rib of Adam, Adam was actually created from parts of Lilith. And I think that what this means in an archetypal sense is that Lilith embodies the archetypal energy, is the embodiment of the creative, unlimited force of pure potential existence. So it's all things in one. It's the embracement of all types of duality, because what ended up happening with Lilith, according to these creation myths, is she would not be subordinate to Adam's wishes. She wouldn't do what he wanted her to do. There are different interpretations of what exactly that was. Some of it had to do with sexual positioning, as strange as that might sound, but then again we're talking about primal forces, so that would make sense. And some of it has to do with other type of things. It's hard to find exactly what she wouldn't do that she was supposed to do, other than just generally be subordinate to him. And so what she did was she left. She chose exile, and she chose exile for herself, and she peaced out and ran away, and then became this dark goddess of, if you hear this rustling, it's my other cat, who's an adult male, and he really does not know quite what to do with this little being right here. They're having interesting interactions between them. I think it's interesting that he, who was the king of the roost, we even joked that he was the king before she came along, is popping in as I'm talking about Lilith and Adam. So according to tale, Adam then was part of creating Eve, who was subordinate, and then she was the ideal feminine principle, right, that we were all supposed to follow. Well, Lilith ended up being merged with a lot of different goddesses over the centuries. She was merged with Inanna and with Ishtar. She is often pictured with wings. She's often pictured dark. They said she was a vampire. They said she was evil. They said she would kill her own children. But none of that stuff was in the original. The original was just that she wasn't subordinate and she was wild and she chose to be the master of her own destiny. So I think that that is very interesting, that that's what my mind would go to. And this is after I was told that Lilith was supposed to be her name, or some derivative of Lilith. So the months passed. I didn't find a kitten. I looked for a kitten at the shelters around here. Didn't find one. Was told after the beginning of the year that kitten season hadn't begun yet and that it would in April-ish, and so I should look again then. But by the time April rolled around, my life had been more busy. I didn't now think I wanted a kitten, and when the search stopped back in January, February, I came to the conclusion that if I was supposed to have her, she would just show up. And she certainly did last week. My significant other was working. He has a job where he works lots of different places doing things that can be done in lots of different settings. And so he was doing his job in a shelter that day, and he walked into the cat room, walked up to her cage, and she was sitting there looking directly at him and purring. And he sent me a text message and said, "Karis, I realize why I haven't gotten you a birthday present yet. This was about a month after my birthday, and I turned 30 this year. It's kind of a big deal, and he hadn't gotten me a present yet, and he didn't know why. And then when he saw her, he said he knew instantly. He said, she looks like you, and her eyes are exactly the color of yours, and she has your mannerisms, and her face shape is like yours, and she's yours. She's your cat." I didn't particularly want a cat at this point, but he sent me a video of her, and I couldn't deny when I watched it that she was mine. She just obviously was a kindred to me. Hey Pax, that's the male cat. How you doing? You gonna come say hi? I don't know, I think he's contemplating it. Anyway, so I picked her up the next day, but before I did, I went outside to meditate because I was kind of shell-shocked at the idea of all of a sudden having a cat enter my life, because I found out that we could pick her up the next day. And so I went outside to meditate, and I was thinking to myself, what will I even call her? And into my mind came the word Lithia first, and then Lilith attached to the front of it, so it was Lilithia. And I researched the name Lithia, and I found that it's not a commonly used name unless it's a name that's kind of a derivative of Lydia. And it's funny because Lithia does sound like a name, but I did find out that the ending IA put on the end of words can denote a few things. It can denote a disease like malaria, or it can denote a place like Australia or India or Cambodia, all of these IA ending places. So what I realized was that the name Lilithia is creating the obvious energetic sequencing, which you do when you name something. When I named her, or when she told me her name, I do think that I was speaking to some version of her, that just like we have a higher self out of our bodies, all beings do. So I think that whatever this version was speaking to me and telling me what her name was. And she is a space, her field generates a vibration where the wild feminine is strongly represented. And whew, as her new partner, I can tell you that is definitely true. She's being very calm in this video, and it's because we're outside. And like is done with true familiars often, I'm going to be bringing her a lot with me around, so you guys are going to get to see much more of her. Right now she's wearing this cone because she had to get spayed, which I wasn't a huge fan of because, you know, I would rather not have an operation done, but in the shelters around here they don't give you the option. And so after her name came to me, Lilithia, the middle name Lyra came to me, and then my last name, which is Brown. So Lilithia Lyra Brown was fully in my head during that meditation, and I remembered that the planet or the star system Lyra is where beings who are very feline in nature are said to come from. So it didn't surprise me that her middle name would be Lyra, because I have been told in meditation before that black cats like this. Let me see if I can show her to you a little bit more. She seems to be a little bit camera shy right now. Come here. Come, show yourself. Beings like her, cats that are long and thin and black and have these yellowy eyes, I have been told before that they're star-seeded because they just kind of pop up in the the generations. They can have brothers and sisters that don't at all look like this, and they're very specific look. And they were the ones who were in the temples, and other cats are just as magical, but these are just a specific subset of the feline race that pops through every now and then genetically. Anyway, so the day that I was going to pick her up, I was preparing, and I think at this moment I was just cleaning the house. I remember I was cleaning the mirror in the guest bathroom, and all of a sudden I felt my entire second chakra go cold. I felt no pain just from just below my belly button down to the bottom of my hips. I felt this sensation of cold and kind of numbness, and I knew that at that moment she was getting her surgery done. I knew I could feel it. I felt the resonance. And I was shocked because I'd never even met her yet. I didn't even meet her until I picked her up to bring her home. And instantly she just glommed onto me, and this is kind of what I'm experiencing. And I'm learning so much from her already. I'm learning that she is, I mean, cats, they're like intense, badass little monkeys. I mean, look at her, she does this all the time, but if she's about to slip off or fall off, or if she loses her balance, she grabs onto me to hold on. And I have, if I could show you close up of my shoulders right now, yesterday I was wearing a strapless shirt, and I had a necklace on that trails strings down my back, and she started playing with them, and the back of my shoulders right now is just torn all to pieces. But she's a baby. She doesn't know, she doesn't realize yet that her claws are retractable, and that she doesn't, when she plays, she doesn't need to use her claws and things like that. She's learning, she is learning, but she's very young. She's only 2 months old. So anyway, that's the story of Lilithia, and she is showing me a lot. I am able to access more of my own wild nature when I'm around her. It's interesting. She's definitely unlocking pieces of my genetic code and my energetic code that have been dormant. And right when I found her, I was focusing on bringing about the wilder nature in my lower chakras. In fact, the name of the book that I am currently working on is Starseed Wilding. So it has everything to do with getting back in touch with nature and going into the forest and activating parts of our DNA. For instance, when I'm walking through the forest, not on trails, I hearken back to the parts of my genetic lineage that are Native American, and I am aware that the noise I generate going through the forest is shameful. That anyone who knows the forest and really trusts the ground beneath them as the mother planet that is holding them doesn't crash and thrash around the way that I do when I'm trying to be quiet. And these are just things that, I'm 30 years old, I haven't practiced this in this lifetime. So it exists in there, but it's not super present and up front, and I'm bringing it up through these exercises I've been doing lately and through what my universe is giving me. So that's Lilithia. And the thing I wanted to tell you guys about manifestation, I was listening to an Abraham Hicks recording yesterday, and I've been listening to a lot of Abraham Hicks lately. I've been listening to a lot of Esther Hicks's work. I end up doing that about once a year or so. I hadn't really immersed myself in Abraham Hicks since last spring, and here it is, early summer again, and I'm immersing myself again. But one of the things that she said was that within 17 seconds, a thought begins to materialize after holding it for 17 seconds. And 1s and 7s are some of my specific power numbers. And so as I'm listening to this, I hear the number 17 and I instantly snap to. And I wonder what's in it for me, like what the special note is in that. It wasn't 16 seconds, it wasn't 19 seconds, it was 17. And so that held a lesson for me. So I zoomed in with my intuition, and it unfolded that I should try in that moment right then to hold a thought for 17 seconds, to hold something I was trying to manifest. Ooh, there's a claw, for 17 seconds. Come around to the front, baby. Come here. Come, snuggle with me. So then I tried, and I realized that there's a process that we go through on this planet, and this is definitely a rabbit hole, and I am discovering more to it. And some of it has to do with the conspiracy theory stuff, and some of it has to do with just what our Earth Planet School is made up of, and those two things are pretty entwined. But what I found out was that after about 4 seconds, I got this wave of emotion that was trying to distract me in a negative way. I got this wave of insecurity and the feeling of, but that's not the way it is, because I'm trying to superimpose morphogenetic fields through my willpower, my intent, and my personal divinity over what currently exists as the physical reality around me. And so after about 4 or 5 seconds, there's this like shudder in my consciousness, and it's, but wait, that's not true. And I was lucky enough to be conscious enough in that moment to catch it and say, this is crap. Obviously, you, the shudder consciousness that's trying to snag onto some type of fear, aren't what I should be listening to. And so then I kept going, and once you get past that, something even more interesting happened. And this was not attaching to the emotions of fear, but what it did do was that my consciousness just started to look around for any possible thing that it could attach to. Anything. It didn't have to be bad. It didn't have to be an insecurity I had. It could be any other thought. It's like my consciousness was having a seizure. It was like starving animal scrounging around for anything else it could grab onto to keep me from manifesting the better reality. And I think that a lot of us do that. I think that holding a thought, holding a picture, and you in the situation of exactly what you want to manifest, which is a step forward in your self-love, abundance, trust in the universe, belief that everything works out for your best good, and that best good is denoted to your own inner subjective experience by how you feel in the moment and how joyful you are. And I'm not talking about satisfying a craving for an addiction. I'm talking about expansive and joyful and connected and loving and trusting. And even when a cat is clawing at your neck, it's still knowing that it's for your best good and your highest good, and that it all makes sense, and that it is coming to you, whatever it is that you want, whatever it is that you're manifesting, and focusing on that moment. And honestly, I'm not sure if I did make 17 seconds. I don't think that I did, so I'm gonna have to practice again. But holding it for 17 seconds is something that's very difficult. I do think that the vibrations around us are limiting us in some way, because we've lived in this world for so long, and now we're trying to get to a new one, and walking through a doorway is going to have challenges. The new room is a different room. We're going to have to acclimate to different things. And since our new room has to do with knowing consciously that we're divine beings, that 17 seconds is, I think, a key. I think something that you should try on your own and see if you experience what I experienced, see if you experience something different, and whatever you notice, use as a navigation tool in your own manifestation. So yeah, there's a dance going on right now between consciously manifesting and being present in the moment and not being too impatient, and manifesting via vibration rather than work, which has been difficult for me, being patient with myself with work when technology doesn't work, or I'm not as productive as I would wish to be, or the day just gets away from me and I haven't returned some calls I needed to, or I haven't scheduled things that I needed to, and stuff like that. But it's working out. It's very interesting. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on this summer. I do think that by fall, it's going to be a very different world that we're in. So just be as present as you possibly can. Enjoy the ride, because it's a fun one. And try not to be judgmental about what you're experiencing. Try to remember that you have already chosen the path of growth and expansion. If you hadn't, you wouldn't even have, things are so intense right now that if you had chosen the path of Armageddon type stuff, which did exist in our choices a while ago, but now isn't an option anymore from what I've been told, you wouldn't even have the free time to be watching this video. Your life would be hitting the fan so bad because you would be so forced to realize your divine nature through struggle and trauma and intense situations that were life or death in nature, and that you just had to put down your divine foot like a mother lifting a car off of her child. And we're all capable of these things all the time. Only sometimes we let ourselves own it and use it, though. So you'd be having those kinds of experiences. You wouldn't be sitting at your computer looking at your phone and watching a video of someone sitting under a tree and telling you about how to manifest something because it makes you feel good. So know that you've already succeeded, and own that and be happy about it, and the trees agree with me. So that's all I have for you guys today. I'm about to do a lot of traveling. I'm about to go up to Portland and out to Virginia and up to Northern California, and I'll be doing readings, and I'm doing a workshop in Virginia on July 6th in Richmond called Embracing Your Purpose. That's going to help you find what it is that you're supposed to be doing, which you already kind of know, but it'll just help remind you and give you steps on how to more easily bring that into your physical experience and work in resonance with what your spirit wants you to be doing. Alright guys, I'm gonna let you go. Lilithia is getting tired of sitting here, and I am blabbering on for way too long, but go in peace, have a wonderful day, enjoy the summer, and I'll talk to you again very soon.